So we wrote our first toggle cart hidden mutation, and we used it to leverage the local cache state of Apollo in order to modify our application so that now our cart hidden is stored in Apollo instead of Redux. Now that's really good with something where it's an easy Boolean value that we're switching. But what about something more complicated, like updating an array of some kind? Well, that's exactly what we're going to do next. What we're going to do next is we are going to modify our array of cart items whenever the user adds them to their cart. And by doing so, hopefully we'll be able to see more of the way that we write these mutations. So what we're going to do is we're going to first identify what the actual initial state of the data will be for our cart item. So for us, of course, we know that we're going to call it cart items as we did in our reducer with our cart reducer. And we're going to set it as a default value of an empty array. Now, what we want to do inside of our resolvers is we want to add in something to our item. So we know that whenever we add items, we increase the quantity, right? We had some code inside our cart utils where depending on if the item was already in the cart or not, we would either increase the quantity or add a new quantity. So we're going to have to do something similar. So inside of our resolvers, though, we need to make sure that our code knows that that object that is an item might have this quantity property. So we'll say extend type item. So we're extending from the item type inside of our database in our GraphQL server. And we want to put this new quantity value, and it's going to be an integer that might or might not be there. Now, inside of our mutation, we know that we need our new add item to cart method. And this is going to take an item, which is going to be an item. And what this returns back to us is an array of items. Now, there may be items there, they might not be items there. We don't have to ensure that this item exists in here. But we know that this array must come back. Now, what we're going to do is we are going to write that new mutation. So we are going to say here, after our toggle cart hidden mutation, our add item to cart. Inside of here, we are going to ignore the root, and we are going to pass in a variable called item. So this item is going to represent the item we want to add to our cart. So here we'll just make sure to pluck it off of our arguments object. And then we also want our cache. So what we're going to do is we are going to first get the cart items off of our cache state. And what we're going to do is we're going to run those cart utils that we did inside of our reducer that we're used to. So we're actually going to copy these cart utils and we're going to put them inside of our new GraphQL folder where we're going to use them. Where is that? Right here. So let's just drop them in here. And now we have access to our add item to cart function, which we're going to use. So let's import that in from our cart utils folder file, sorry. And now inside of our resolver, what we're going to do is we're going to first pluck off our cart items. Because as you remember, this function expects both the cart items that currently exist and then the cart item we're trying to add. Now, back inside of our resolver, we're going to need to pull off the cart items the same way that we did inside of our toggle cart hidden, where we pulled off the cart hidden value. So let's write that query. And we'll call it get cart items, which is equal to this GQL object, where we simply pull cart items from the client. Almost identical to our pull cart hidden query. And now what we're going to do is we are just going to add that to our actual resolve our definition by saying that we get the cart items from the return of cache.read query, where we pass in our new query. Now, of course, the cart items will be the cart items, right, that we're pulling from in our query. So we're just destructuring them off. And then what we're going to do is we are going to make the new cart items as a constant. And this is going to be our function where we add item to cart, passing in our existing cart items as well as the new item we're trying to add. So now this will give us back the array that we're used to getting back whenever we called our add item to cart function. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to say cache.write query. So just like we did here, we're going to write to this query of get cart items, except now the data goes to our cart items and our new cart items. And that's literally all it is. And then we're just going to return our new cart items. So if you've noticed, this pattern pretty much looks exactly like what we had up here. Any transformations we need to make, we just do them inside of the function. We just make sure to return what it is that we're getting as the new values, and then we set them with cache.write query. And now we have the ability to add items to the cart. Lowercase this, I accidentally kept that capital. Yeah, so we have this mutation now. So now we can actually update our code to both use our cart items inside of our cart dropdown, as well as modify our checkout item or our collection item, so that whenever you click the add, it adds the item to our cart items. So let's do that inside of our cart dropdown first. So inside of our cart dropdown, we need to remove our current Redux bindings. What we have is this map state to props that we don't need anymore because this was what was pulling in the cart items. But now we're going to use our local query. So let's get rid of this connect because we don't need that either. And then we can remove our imports that are calling our Redux libraries that bring those in. Now we do have this last dispatch as well. And we don't want to use this either. Instead, now what we want to do is use the new toggle hidden that we have inside of our mutation. So I'm going to show you how we can actually add both the query and mutation to this cart dropdown component. So let's get rid of this dispatch. Let's get rid of this toggle cart hidden. And instead here, let's just call toggle cart hidden, which is a prop that we'll pass in. Now, inside of our cart dropdown, we will make a new cart dropdown.container.jsx. And what we'll do is we will import in React from React. And we'll import in both our query and our mutation components because we need both our mutation and our query. And I'll show you how we can actually write that out. So let's just first import in GQL from Apollo Boost. And then import in our cart dropdown component. Now, what we need is we need both the cart dropdown selector as well as the mutation selector that we wrote before. Sorry, not selector, the actual query object. So we can use the same one that we had inside of our cart icon container. We can just copy this over. Now again, as this scales, you might want to move these into their own files that we can just import from. But right now, it's not too big of a deal. And we also want to make sure that we get the get cart items that we just wrote. Right? The new get cart items that we have stored in our local cache. So this will be equal to GQL of an object where it's cart items on the client. So hopefully now this pattern is beginning to make sense. We've been writing it pretty much the same way, and this container pattern is very similar to what we've done already for the last few lessons. And now we're just going to write our cart dropdown container, which is equal to this function that will return back. So here what we're going to do is we are just going to wrap both of our new query and mutation components around our cart dropdown component. The order does not really matter. You just have to make sure that you write the function so that you get access to the actual value that we're trying to get from either the query or the mutation. So we can start with the mutation, and we'll pass in our toggle cart hidden. And then inside of here, we have our function where we get the toggle cart hidden. And inside of this function, what we'll return back is our query. And in this query, what we'll get back is our get cart items as the query. And in here will be another function that gives us back our data, which we know will be our cart items. And out of this function, we'll finally return our cart dropdown. So hopefully that's not too confusing, right? This mutation is just a function that gives us our toggle cart hidden, which in turn returns our query, which gives us our data, which all is wrapped around our cart dropdown. So here we're going to pass our cart items in as the cart items. And we're also going to pass in our toggle cart hidden as toggle cart hidden. And now let's export this as the default value. So now that we have our new exported cart dropdown container, we have to make sure to change where we were using our old cart dropdown inside of our header. So here we're going to say default as cart dropdown, and then change the component to container. And now if we look, we should see that we have our new cart dropdown bound to our current toggle cart hidden mutation. So if we click it, we see it hides it. So everything is working. The only thing now is we have to modify our checkout item so that we're able to add those items into our cart. So let's do that in the next lesson.